It is okay and healthy to always feel the pain of grief, but getting stuck in that grief where it's holding you back and the pain feels unbearable is a choice. And I know that might burn deeply, right? But that's because we've been taught that there's 5 stages of grief and that we should just be able to go through them in a healthy way. But I have experienced unimaginable loss of losing 3 children and my husband. So I know grief intimately. And I want to share with you Dr. Tonkin's Grow with Grief. And if you think about your grief, if you took a piece of paper at home right now and you wrote down all of your grief, right? So I would write Johnny, Maya, Reggie, my husband, and then put it all into put it into a ball, and we put it into a jar, and this is life. That grief is heavy in our minds and our hearts. And people tell us that time heals all wounds. So we think, oh, a year later, how was my grief? And I write all that grief down again. And time looks exactly the same. What about 5 years, 10 years? I have so many parents come to me and say, 10 years later, I will never be the same. I will never get over this type of grief. And so whether you are going through a betrayal of a divorce or the unthinkable of losing a child, grief is not in 5 stages. I want to show you that you can grow around your grief. Remember those 3 same-size jars with time? And we have that grief. And this is where you are today. The grief is full and it feels overwhelming. So it's not time that heals this wound. What happens is, if you learn to grow around your grief, look, there's other joy in your life. It doesn't mean that the pain of that grief is gone, but there's more in your life. So grow around your grief. If you find ways to do that, in time, it's not that time healed this wound. It's time made it less intense, less overwhelming, so that you feel like you have joy, you have reasons to live, and you are enjoying your life again. So this is growing around grief. You are becoming a bigger person to hold space for that grief. The grief doesn't actually go away. So I teach something called the Mentally Strong Method. My name is Dr. B. I'm a psychiatric nurse practitioner, and I already shared I've gone through tremendous loss. And when I look at these jars, it brings me joy to be able to say, I am allowed to hold on to the pain of this grief forever. My children will be with me, and that pain will be with me until the day I leave this earth, right? But I am learning to grow around that grief. But it actually is a little more complicated than that. Because what happens is there's often, with this grief, and in my case, losing a child, there's trauma. There's spiritual conflict. There's, anger and anxiety and injustices around the grief. Let's look at these balls as different aspects of whatever you've been through. So for me, losing a child in and of itself is traumatic, right? But my son's life was traumatic. He had multiple hospitalizations, breaking bones during seizures. That was my Reggie trauma. The day that Maya died was traumatic. What about the spiritual conflict? I truly believed that there was a God that was going to, protect me and heal my children. And I had to work through that. I have anxiety around what is the next thing that's going to happen, right? So there's so many other aspects of grief. And we're trying to fit it all into that jar, right? And yes, you're going to grow around that grief. And in time, even that, if you are filling your life with other things, right? It could be manageable. But what if I told you the real healing comes from taking these and healing from this, healing from the trauma, healing from the spiritual conflict, healing from the anger of the injustice, and just taking those negative pieces, the negative talk, I'm not a good mother. If I was smart enough, I would have been able to save my children, right? These are the things that just keep holding you back, right? There's other things that we do with that. That's not grief. So if we could actually take these things and learn to heal the trauma, the negative talk, the spiritual conflict, the triggers, all of the things that are not the grief, and learn to process them and learn to be stronger because of them, then we can have all of this space for joy and happiness and still have our grief. Our grief is a badge of honor. It is yours. So I want you to download the worksheet in the description, and that is a worksheet about acknowledging grief. Because grief is not trauma. Grief is not these other things. And this piece of paper that right now represents my son Johnny, my son Reggie, Maya, and my husband, I am allowed to wear this as a badge of honor. This is my story, right? But how you tell your story is also important. How you tell your story that I am a survivor, I am resilient. So you're going to learn to think through this grief that you're going through. And the first thing you're going to think is what I'm talking about here. You're going to grow around this grief. You do not have to let go of grief. But I do want you to learn to let go of that trauma we talked about. I do want you to work through if you have spiritual conflict. Right? Like, this is the think, organize, choose. This is the mentally strong method. I will teach you how to think through this grief, identify the traumas and the other things associated with the grief so that you can be proud of the pain of grief. I am proud of my pain of grief, which is kind of, cliche that you wouldn't say that you are proud of pain. But that's my story. And I am not going to let go of the pain of grief. And so when somebody tells you, oh, it's 5 stages and you're going to come to the end of acceptance, the 5 stages of grief was never intended for the survivor. The 5 stages of grief was designed as a hospice thing where, what people are going through when they are dying, not for those of us who are left behind. So the first thing you're going to think about in the Think, Organize, Choose is we're going to download that worksheet, acknowledge your grief, And then we are going to grow around the grief. That means finding new things to be excited about, finding new adventures to do, finding new relationships to make important, right? And then we're going to organize our thoughts, right? You're going to take all this colorful stuff that's also pain, and you're not going to hold on to this. You are going to learn how to process these things. You are going to learn how to speak positively to yourself, because that doesn't help your grief. The negative talk does not help your grief. You are going to learn to get rid of these things, the trauma, the hurt, the anxiety, the injustice, so that you can hold on to the pain of grief that is yours, that is your story. If you downloaded the worksheet, you'll be invited to see my documentary, get a free copy of my book, but continue watching the hidden symptoms of grief. Maybe you are physically manifesting your grief as well. I do believe that you are mentally strong.